Texas Democrats have a familiar face in the race for U.S. Senate as Colin Allred kicks off his campaign, but some in his party are skeptical.
Colin Allred was in Congress. He was in the Obama administration for a decade. We know how Texans vote on that. That's why I got in this race.
A former astronaut and fighter pilot pushes a different path for Democrats as the party aims to end a decades-long losing streak in Texas.
What you're going to find out of me is somebody who is ready on day one to very closely integrate with the Trump administration.
President Trump called him a true MAGA attorney. Now Ken Paxton's former deputy is making a move to become the state's next attorney general. Hear his message to voters. A growing legal battle to keep the Ten Commandments out of Texas classrooms. How the outcome in court could redefine the separation of church and state.
Produced from the Capitol in Austin and airing statewide, this is the award-winning State of Texas.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Josh Hinkle. A familiar name is now in the race for U.S. Senate. Colin Allred launched his campaign for the Democratic nomination, this time targeting the seat held by Senator John Cornyn. Cornyn already has competition on the Republican side. State Capitol reporter Adam Schwager explains why Allred's announcement could be the start of more Democrats entering the race.
Today I'm announcing my candidacy for the United States Senate.
Colin Allred is running it back. The former congressman and professional football player announced his candidacy for U.S. Senate, drawing parallels between losing his first Senate race to being an undrafted player who persisted to make an NFL roster.
One thing that Colin Allred can say, and he's already saying, is that he's done this, he knows the ropes.
Jim Henson runs the Texas Politics Project, tracking public opinion on Texas politicians. So far, polls show an opportunity for Democrats. In June, just 23% of registered voters polled had a favorable opinion of incumbent John Cornyn. His main Republican challenger is not polling much better, as 29% had a favorable opinion of Ken Paxton.
Allred, like a lot of other Democrats, looks at 2026 and, all things being equal, sees an environment that should be pretty advantageous, comparatively speaking, for Democrats.
Allred likely won't be the only Democrat to join the race. Last week, another former Democratic Senate nominee, Beto O'Rourke, talked about a conversation he had with Allred, U.S. Representative Joaquin Castro, and State Representative James Tallarico about the plan for 2026.
My concern is making sure that everyone is in the right position. If you have everybody clustered in a Senate primary, for example, well then who's going to run for governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general?
Henson says the Senate race could be the best opportunity for Texas Democrats.
If you're going to run for one of those other top offices, say the governor, the lieutenant governor, are going to be running against very well entrenched, experienced incumbents.
For State of Texas, I'm Adam Schwager.
The top Republicans in the race largely dismissed Allred's announcement. Ken Paxton's team pointed us to a social media post in which Paxton said it's time for Texas voters to say no to Allred's vision and values one more time. Senator Cornyn's senior campaign advisor told us, quote, John Cornyn has voted with Trump 99% and is the only candidate conservatives can trust to beat progressive Colin Allred. Also running in the Democratic primary is retired astronaut Terry Bertz, who describes himself as a common-sense Democrat. Bertz posted a video on social media welcoming Allred into the race, but he told our Adam Schwager why he believes his campaign is a better option for Texas voters.
I guess just start off, talk to me a little bit about yourself and what should voters know about Terry Bertz?
Well, thanks for having me on. I am a former Air Force F-16 pilot. I was in the Air Force for over 30 years, flew all around the world, spent a lot of time in Fort Worth at the F-16 factory, now F-35 factory up there in the fort, we used to call it. And then I came here to NASA. I live in Houston as an astronaut 25 years ago. Spent over 16 years at NASA, flew on the Space Shuttle Endeavour as the pilot, and I was also the commander of the space station, spent a little over 7 months in space, also flew with the Russians. So that's my career. It's not exactly what a typical politician's career is, but that's kind of that's the campaign that I'm running. I'm not a typical politician. I think I'm a common sense, mission oriented, get the mission done, get the job done kind of guy. My combat missions were spent over Iraq, and so a little bit of a different background, but I think that's what Texans want. I think that's, the same old politician is not necessarily what folks want or need. That's not what this moment demands, that's for sure.
It's not the first, military / astronaut background we've seen. Why do you think that background helps prepare you to potentially serve in the U.S. Senate?
Yeah, absolutely. Mark Kelly just texted me this morning. He's a astronaut, my colleague, senator from Arizona. So I joke that, if Arizona has an astronaut, then Texas needs one. We can't be, Texas can't be without an astronaut senator. So we got to have one too. I was on the space station a few years ago when Russia first invaded Ukraine. Obviously, the things that Putin has been doing for years now are just evil. But I was there with Russian cosmonauts, and these guys were my friends, and we had to work together. We had this really bad ammonia leak. We thought it was going to kill the space station. It ended up not being as, it was a false alarm, but we thought it was real, and we thought it was going to destroy the station. And we looked at each other and we said, look, like, we have to stay alive. We have to just focus on getting the mission done. We can't worry about politics right now. We would always start our events with, hey, politics is politics. It's on Earth. Let's focus on the mission. And that's what our congressmen need to do.
So, speaking of this primary race, you welcomed in last term's nominee, Colin Allred, into the race. I think a lot of people are expecting this field to end up getting crowded with some potential other big names in the state's Democratic political circles. How do you plan to rise above that and get your name above some of these establishment candidates?
I welcome Colin into the race. I like Colin. I think Colin's a good man. I supported him. I voted for him. I wish he was our senator. I wish he would have beaten Ted Cruz, but he didn't. And the thing about Texas, I went back, I did some research on my own. And for the last century, if you lose a Senate race in Texas, you don't win again. I mean, that's just how we do things in Texas. There was one guy, John Tower, in 1961, won a special election one time because Lyndon Johnson had been elected vice president. But once you lose, you don't win again. And unfortunately, Colin lost by almost 10%. So we can keep on trying the same thing and hoping for a different result. They say that's the definition of insanity. Colin Allred was in Congress. He was in the Obama administration for a decade. We know how Texans vote on that. That's why I got in this race. If I thought they could win, I would just support them and vote them. But I want to offer Texans, a common sense, a reformed Democrat candidate, somebody who's not beholden to the national party.
Along with Bertz and Allred, there is a third Democrat who announced a run for Senate. Mike Swanson has a degree in aviation management and describes himself as a working class guy. Candidates can begin officially filing for a place on the ballot in November. When Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton announced his run for Senate, candidates started vying for his job. Now, a former Paxton deputy is in the race and touting his work for President Trump. The state faces a new lawsuit over its plan to get the 10 Commandments in Texas classrooms. The experts who say the legal battle is part of the point. Texas takes a new approach to make it harder for people making fake temporary license plates, but the change is bringing new concerns for law enforcement. The ACLU is suing the state of Texas over a law that requires the 10 Commandments be posted in all public school classrooms. 16 families are part of the lawsuit, which argues the law violates the Constitution. Capitol correspondent Dylan McKim looks closer at the legal challenge.
It's not the first time the state of Texas has been sued over the 10 Commandments, like this monument on the Capitol grounds. Then Attorney General Greg Abbott actually successfully defended this monument in the Supreme Court. In that case, the court said that this monument recognizes the historical impact that the 10 Commandments had on Texas. Now, Governor Greg Abbott says the state will win any future legal battles as the state faces its second lawsuit in under a week. The most recent lawsuit was filed by the ACLU, joining a separate lawsuit filed in North Texas last week. Both argue the law is unconstitutional and violates the separation of church and state, echoing what opponents were saying during the lawmaking process.
We're putting up a poster that says their religion is inferior. We're putting up a poster that says their faith is not welcome here.
But Republicans in the state legislature argue the law does not establish a state-sponsored religion, but rather serves as a reminder to the importance of the document in American and Texas history.
You have a hard time finding any document, which has had a greater influence on our legal and moral code.
This is an attempt to, have the Supreme Court redefine the way we think of the separation of church and state.
Eric McDaniel researches the influence of race and religion on American politics. He says the way the Supreme Court is currently operating puts forth a new standard of evaluating religious freedom. But McDaniel says the debate of religious freedom is a constant tug of war.
What may seem like freedom to some is oppression to others.
He does not know if this bill will make it all the way to the Supreme Court, but if it does, he says the state may find some success.
So they may allow it, but may put very clear limitations on some of these actions.
Dylan McKim, State of Texas.
The ACLU lawsuit is asking a judge to temporarily block the law until a judgment can be made. A similar law in Louisiana was just blocked by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals and ruled unconstitutional. The Attorney General in Louisiana said she would appeal the ruling and may take the case to the Supreme Court.
When I served as Attorney General Paxton's deputy, he routinely referred to me as his offensive coordinator.
A new candidate in the race to replace Ken Paxton will meet one of the Attorney General's former deputies who's making the case to get the job. A change for car buyers in Texas, the new approach to make it harder for people to create fake paper license plates, and the new challenges concerning law enforcement. When Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton announced he would challenge John Cornyn in the Republican primary for U.S. Senate, it created an opening for his job. Now the election to replace Paxton is heating up. So far on the Republican side, 2 state senators have launched campaigns for Attorney General. Galveston Republican Mays Middleton is president of an oil company. He pledged to fund his campaign with $10 million of his own money. And Houston Republican Joan Huffman is a former state prosecutor who also served as a district court judge. And there's our third Republican in the race. Wright is a former aide to Ken Paxton. Last month, he left a role serving in the U.S. Justice Department to launch his campaign. Capitol reporter Adam Schwiger spoke with Wright about why he's running and what he would do if elected.
Thank you for taking the time. Aaron Wright, tell me, why are you running for Attorney General?
Well, look, I think that Texans deserve to have what President Trump called me when he brought me into the Justice Department as their next AG, and that is a true MAGA attorney and a warrior for the Constitution. Attorney General Paxton has served our state faithfully for over the past decade, and we need to keep our foot on the gas. And whether you look at my experience as a Marine Corps officer, Afghanistan war veteran, clerk on the Texas Supreme Court, deputy under Paxton, chief of staff under Senator Cruz, and then my time as the head of the Office of Legal Policy at the Justice Department, that record, that background provides Texans the confidence that they need to select their next Texas AG, and that's why I'm running.
Speaking of Paxton, you've kind of described your candidacy as a transition from the Paxton administration to what would be your administration to keep that continuing. What are some of the favorite things that Attorney General Paxton has done during his tenure?
Well, when I served as Attorney General Paxton's deputy, he routinely referred to me as his offensive coordinator. And the work that we did together spanned the entire portfolio of major legal issues that Texans care about, whether it's border security, big tech, election integrity, protecting our kids against some of the radical agendas, parental rights, education freedom. You choose the issue, whatever your issue may be, and I have litigated, defended, appealed, sued, and investigated on all of those issues. And so when Texans are looking to support or elect their next Texas AG for somebody who has the proven battle-tested experience to be ready on day one to continue fighting the fights on behalf of Texas and all Texans, it's me. And so we're going to continue to put our foot on the gas and press hard in those directions. What you're going to find out of me is somebody who is ready on day one to very closely integrate with the Trump administration to advance the law and order agenda here in the Lone Star State. And there's no candidate in this race who's better suited to do that than me.
You mentioned battle tested. You're running right now in the primary against two sitting state senators. They've been on ballots before. Senator Joan Huffman, one of the longest tenured members of the Texas Senate. One of their critiques might be that you don't have enough experience. What would your response to that be?
Yeah, look, I think that is a loser critique. Anybody who's saying that somebody needs to get in line and wait several more decades for the right time is really just an excuse for saying, hey, it's my turn to run for this office. This is my office. I've waited long enough for it. I think that is the sort of low energy mentality and approach that State Senator Joan Huffman and Mays Middleton are going to bring to this race. I think that if you put our records next to each other and you compare them all, and you want somebody who is ready on day one to serve as a state's top lawyer, my record, I think, beats theirs and any other candidate. Again, when you look at my record, litigating, investigating, suing, defending, and appealing on all of the major issues from the perspective of this executive branch legal role, I think my record beats theirs every single day.
Speaking of being ready on day one, what would that day one, those first 100 days, those first 6 months look like under the Aaron Wrights as Attorney General regime?
Yeah, so I think that the first 2 years are going to be characterized by very deep integration with the Trump administration, okay? Obviously, President Trump, when he elevated me to the Justice Department under Attorney General Bondi, he specifically praised my record litigating on major issues with Attorney General Ken Paxton, and then he specifically called me a true MAGA attorney and a warrior for the Constitution. So when I'm sworn in on January of 2027, you're going to see the first 2 years of my tenure being a close partnership with the Trump administration to advance the law and order and justice agenda here in the Lone Star State on all of the major issues from election integrity, border security, protecting families and kids, going against big tech and their suppression of free speech, and all these major issues for the first 2 years, close integration. Those second 2 years, we'll have to see what happens with the presidential election in 2028. If the White House is retained by Republicans, you're going to see ongoing partnership with a Republican administration to advance law and order here. If you see a changing of the guard, you're going to see what I did for my 3 years under Attorney General Paxton, and that is suing the federal government under Democratic control to ensure that Texas liberty is protected here at home.
There's more from our interview with Wright right now on our website. He also shared his thoughts on the lawsuit that ended the Texas DREAM Act and how he sees the role of the AG's office in the debate over whether to ban THC products in Texas. Just look for the video link in this week's State of Texas story.
This is huge. To me, I mean, it's almost like I'm taking a breath of fresh air.
Texas is taking a new approach to make it harder for people making fake paper license plates, but our investigation found the change comes with new challenges for law enforcement. As of July 1st, Texas will no longer issue temporary paper license plates for most vehicles. Instead, drivers will start seeing new color-coded metal plates. This follows a 2023 law in response to years of widespread fraud and abuse, an issue we covered in our Risky Rides series of reports. Investigator Matt Grant takes a look at what the change means for drivers and law enforcement.
And they're putting them on cars and you're not the wiser.
For 8 years, KXAN has investigated Texas's paper plate problem.
Why don't you go ahead and take a look at this video from KXAN.
Law enforcement complaining these phony tags are easily purchased,
100. Gracias. Go ahead and take them down.
printed or hacked by criminals looking to hide in plain sight.
We've been doing this for 3 years now, and still here we are.
Driving the fight to stop it, Sergeant Jose Escribano with the Travis County Constable's Office.
This is huge. To me, I mean, it's almost like I'm taking a breath of fresh air.
Days before the new law took effect,
I'm looking for paper tags.
we joined Escribano on a recent patrol.
Sometimes I would drive down here and just about every car you saw had a paper tag on it, which was crazy.
Those paper tags are now being replaced with 4 new color-coded metal ones, which the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles unveiled in February, including this red one valid for up to 30 days. The goal, make them harder to counterfeit and easier to trace.
That has to be a fake. I'm going to get out and take a look at it, okay?
But don't expect paper tags to completely disappear from Texas roads just yet.
But that's a fake.
Some recently issued are valid until September 1st.
Huh, and there was one behind me. Oh no.
On this trip, we watched Sergeant Escribano as he spotted several that turned out, he said, to be bogus.
That's an altered tag. So you're expired and you shouldn't have it. You're not a dealer. You can't have that authorized agent tag on your car, or you're going to have to do some explaining.
Because the cars were parked, he kept going. His concern now, how criminals will pivot away from paper and if authorities are ready.
If I'm a crook, why would I want to go ahead and order one, pay it, this, that, and the other, when I can just go ahead and steal one? Am I going to see an increase in the stolen plates? I don't know.
Leading up to the transition, we asked the Texas DMV if it was prepared. A spokesperson said as of last month, more than 32,000 auto dealership employees have been trained, with 1 million new plates delivered and required to be securely stored. The agency says it collaborated with stakeholders for more than 2 years to ensure a smooth transition, saying, "Given the complexity of the process changes, unique operational challenges may arise. However, systems have been carefully designed to provide maximum flexibility to address any challenges quickly and efficiently." The Texas Automobile Dealers Association, which represents 1,200 franchise dealers, declined to comment. Back with Escribano.
Paper is gone, and it needed to be gone.
He's still on the hunt, even as he says good riddance to paper.
Matt Grant, State of Texas.
Sergeant Escribano tells us he's also worried about the increase in fraudulent vehicle inspection reports. Data we obtained shows the constable's office investigated 585 cases of emissions fraud between May and December last year, and more than 300 cases as of June 1st. You can catch up on our entire Risky Ride series now on our website. Just look for the link in this week's State of Texas story. Thank you again for joining us for State of Texas. I'm Josh Hinkle, and we'll be back next week to bring you an in-depth look at Texas politics.